Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Leadership Rehearsal. I am your host, Alex Gonzalez. That's Gonzalez with a Z, now with an S. And I'm so excited that you're here. If you're a leader looking to upskill and build your toolkit, whether you're in a corporate setting, a nonprofit, or somewhere in between, you're in the right place. If you haven't heard it yet, I recommend checking out our Season 1 trailer for a snapshot of what the season will cover. Today, I want to slow things down and give you a deeper look at who I am and how this podcast came to be before we dive into our first topic. If you looked at my LinkedIn, you'll see what looks like a very linear corporate career. I started as a learning and development specialist and grew into the role of director of talent enablement for a global tech company. Along the way, I earned my master's in human resource management and have even been invited to speak about leadership, engagement, and workplace culture. In my last corporate role, my team and I built an entire L&D department from the ground up. We designed a multi-tier leadership and professional development programs that were so impactful, the team won a Training Apex Award in 2024, and then again the following year after I left. That award validated the ROI we were driving, practical programs that helped leaders and individuals grow genuinely. What's important for you to know is this. I didn't just study leadership so I could teach it. I practiced it imperfectly in real time. I've made mistakes, I had blind spots, and at different points in my career, I worked with a leadership coach myself. Leadership is personal work. It evolves as you evolve, and I wanted someone to help me pause, challenge my assumptions, and grow with intention. Now, if you look at my profile, you'll see a different title, Founding Artistic Director of Latine Theater Lab. 2 years ago, I made the conscious decision to leave corporate and follow my passion. I started a theater company built on the belief that authenticity, collaboration, and human connection change how people show up. Today, I lead teams of artists and independent contractors to bring productions to life. That transition did clarify something for me. The leadership skills I spent almost a decade developing, both as a leader and as someone who supports leaders, weren't just transferable. They were essential to building creative, high-functioning teams in an entirely new environment. That realization is what inspired this podcast. Leadership isn't just a role you step into, it's a craft you practice over time. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Let's dive into rehearsal. So why leadership rehearsal? In theater, as you know, we don't walk on stage on opening night and hope for the best. We rehearse, and during rehearsal, we test approaches, make mistakes in a safe space, and refine the work before it ever meets an audience. This podcast is that space, a place for you to practice leadership before applying it in real life. This season, we'll revisit what we call manager hygiene, the foundational skills most of us were never formally taught and had to piece together just by surviving our roles. The goal is to help you reflect on where you are now so you can identify strengths and blind spots before you build new habits and approaches that strengthen your toolkit. Every episode includes a solo rehearsal where you reflect and work through an exercise, and a team rehearsal where you take what you practiced and apply it with your team. My point of view is simple. Effective leadership is about balancing the needs of the people you lead with the needs of the business. That balance can feel impossible at times, but trust me, the leaders who find it are the ones who build trust, drive results, and sustain themselves over time. A big part of that balance comes down to understanding your role and when to move between management and leadership. So let's begin with our first topic. As leaders, so much lands on our plates that we tend to lump everything together. We move between the words manager and leader as if they mean the same thing, while most of us prefer being called a leader over a manager. But why is that? Is one shinier than the other? There is a difference between the two, and the real question isn't whether one is better, it's whether we're spending the right amount of time in each bucket. Okay, let's pause. How do you define the difference? Is giving feedback management or leadership? What about setting expectations or having career conversations? If you answer that all of these fall under management, you're right. These are all core responsibilities of managing a team. But many leaders confuse the two and assume that managing is just approving time off or handling logistics, and that leadership is everything else. That misunderstanding is often where the imbalance starts. Here's why this distinction matters. Research from Harvard Business School shows that management and leadership involve different functions, and that today we need both in balance. You need to be able to organize and execute work while also being able to create vision and empower others to bring it to life. That balance doesn't happen automatically. It's built through intentional practice, exactly like what we're doing here. So to reiterate, one is not better than the other. You have to do both. But great leaders know when to switch hats. So I want you to think of managing as the mechanics. It's the engine of the day-to-day. Performance reviews, ensuring goals are met, approving vacation days, holding people accountable. When we're fully in manager mode, your focus is on the output. If you were to only manage, your team might hit their targets, but over time, they could start to feel micromanaged or disconnected from the larger organization. Leading, on the other hand, is about influence. It's about moving a group of people from point A to point B. This is communication, presence, strategy, and vision. When we're fully in leader mode, your focus is on the future and whatever the desired state is. If you only lead, your team might be inspired, but also adrift. They know the North Star, but they don't have a roadmap. So to be clear, there's no right or wrong mix we're aiming for. How much time you spend managing versus leading depends on your level, whether that's team lead to executive and your current priorities. So for example, as a team lead, you're probably not expected to create a 5-year departmental roadmap, but you are expected to hold your team accountable to their deliverables. As you grow in your leadership journey, you're expected to spend more time in the leadership bucket. And remember, things like influencing and navigating change and helping your team through transitions, that's leadership. The one constant is management. You always have to manage your team, their work, their growth, and their accountability. Even as a VP, you can't spend all of your time on vision and strategy. I repeat, even as a VP, you can't spend all of your time on vision and strategy. You still have to manage people and the mechanics of work. Being promoted into a management role brings you into these mechanics. It's part of your job description. You're responsible for the day-to-day engagement and output of your team, but you don't need a title to lead. Leadership is an active influence. It's the choice to move people toward a better version of the future. Anyone can do that from any chair in the room. That's why I say management is a title and leadership is a practice. So I guess the real question isn't whether you can do both, it's whether you're aware of the balance you're currently striking. And to figure that out, we have to look at the data of our own lives. All right, we've made it to our first solo rehearsal. Since this is our very first episode, I want to pause for a moment and talk about how to use this part of the podcast. We're about to do a high-stakes audit of your calendar and recent work to understand how much time you're spending managing versus leading. You have two options here. You can pause me as we go and do the exercise in real time, or you can listen all the way through and come back to it later. Whatever works best for you. To make this easier, I've included a link to a free worksheet in the episode description. The worksheet walks you through each step so you don't have to hold everything in your head. There's no right or wrong way to do this. What matters is that you create space to pause and reflect. All right, step 1, the audit. Pull up your calendar from the last 7 days. Look at every meeting, one-on-one, and blocks of time, and turn that into a list. It's important to do this step versus cataloging it in your head. I am sure that you know where you're spending your time, but the magic is in writing it down and looking at it on a sheet of paper. All right, after you make your list, ask yourself and Mark, was this the mechanics management or was this vision, strategy, or influencing leading? Some examples could be reviewing a spreadsheet, management, discussing where the team is headed in the next year, leadership. All right, step 2, the reflection. Once you see the breakdown, do some light math to get your percentage. What do you see? Which way is your scale tipping, and are you comfortable with that? The goal here is understanding where you currently stand so you can make intentional choices. Reflection, I have found, is one of the first steps towards moving from reactive leadership to intentional leadership. As you review your list, what do you notice? Are you spending more time on fire drills than planning? Did you go a whole week without checking in on some of your team? No matter what you find, ask yourself why. Is it a prioritization issue, lack of time, fear? There's no judgment. Remember, this is your rehearsal. It's a space for you to examine where you are on your leadership journey. Okay, the next step is my favorite, pivot. You don't have to keep spending your time the same way. You are allowed to pivot and evolve. So let's pivot. First, you're going to identify any areas where you're spending time that don't add any value. And if you think it's all valuable, pause, because we know that when everything is important, nothing really is. So a helpful way to approach this is to ask yourself, what can you automate? Could tools like AI handle scheduling, reminders, or summaries? What can you delegate? Is there a task someone else could take over? That's growth for them and time back for you. And what can you eliminate? Did you find a meeting or activity that no longer serves a purpose? Well, cut it out. All right, I acknowledge that some pivots may require support from your manager or leadership, especially if your adjustments involve priorities, clarity, or expectations. So we're going to put a pin on those, and we're going to focus on the low-hanging fruit. What are 1 to 3 shifts that you could make today? As you work on this activity, let me know what you find or anything that is getting in the way. Feel free to drop a comment or DM us on Instagram at Leadership Rehearsal. Remember, leadership is a practice. Paying deliberate attention to where your energy goes creates the balance you're looking for, the impact you want, and space for the work that truly matters. We've made it to our last section. It's time for our first team rehearsal. Okay, here's how to get the most out of it. Remember, you know your team best, so treat these exercises as a guide. The team rehearsal is always rooted in having a conversation with your team. If it makes more sense to do this in a one-on-one rather than a full team meeting, go for it. What matters most is that you're taking what you've rehearsed and bringing it into your workplace, testing it out, seeing what happens, and reflecting on the results. Don't be afraid to adjust the activity to what makes sense for you and your team right now. The most important thing is that you're welcoming them in, sharing honestly, and modeling what growth can look like. All right, here's your first team rehearsal. You're going to share your findings and get their input. So, step 1, frame the conversation. Start by letting your team know you're actively working on your leadership practice. Share that one area you're focusing on is on balancing managing and leading. So an example of what this could be is, I've been reflecting on how I spend my time managing tasks versus leading strategy and vision. I want to bring you into that process so we can work together on what really helps the team succeed. Step 2, share key insights. From your solo exercise, pick 1 to 2 observations to share. Keep it concise and transparent. You're sharing what you found. There's no need to justify. So an example could be, I noticed most of my week is spent approving deliverables, and I'd like to make more space for strategic conversations. Step 3 is ask for input. You want to engage the team in matters that affect them by asking for their input. An example could be, what would be most helpful for me right now? More guidance on day-to-day tasks or more discussion about the bigger picture? Step 4, co-create action items. Capture the team suggestions and commit to 1 to 2 changes you can implement immediately. Whether it's clarifying deliverables at the start of the week to drive engagement, or delegating routine approvals to a senior team member so that way you can gain time back and they can grow their skills, work on the action items together. Step 5, follow up. Revisit the conversation in a week or so. Ask what's working and what needs adjustment. Reinforce that leadership is a practice, not a one-time achievement, and that their input directly shapes your growth. Taking this step shows your team that you are committed to your own development and that you value theirs. That alignment drives results, engagement, and trust. All right, that's all I got for you today. Next week, we'll dive into what it means to build relationships as a leader and how to use that to drive engagement and ROI with your team. Go out there, audit your calendars, have those conversations, and keep practicing. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future rehearsals. Follow us on Instagram at Leadership Rehearsal and share your questions or experiences in the comments. Your input will shape future episodes and exercises. I'm Alex, and I'll see you at the next rehearsal. Bye.